Welcome back to the Daily Workout. I'm Angela Cripps, MD of the recruiting team. This is Louise Triance. I want to say Mrs. Crowdcast herself. Good morning, Louise. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we've known each other about, I reckon, just over 20 years. And this series is called My Life in Recruitment. And I want to hear how you got into recruitment, the good, the bad, and the ugly of your recruitment life. And then a top tip if someone was joining now. But I realise I don't know you before the networking elements. That's where I first met you. I was working for Lander Associates, and Fiona Lander said, you've got to go to one of Louise's events. So I went along and loved it, and I've loved you ever since. So Louise, tell us about how you got into recruitment.
So that's a funny thing. When you asked me to do this, I thought, I wonder if people actually realise I do have a background in recruitment, because for many people, they know me from things like the networking events, the training we did, the actual big events, things like that. But the stuff I did in recruitment was pre-internet. So I wasn't visible as Louise working for a recruitment business. And I joined a recruitment agency in 1991, January 1991. And I think I went for an interview with them. I don't think I just got sucked in. I can't quite remember. I remember walking into the reception of this recruitment agency, and the girl behind the desk, can't remember her name now, as I opened the door, she took a cigarette out of her mouth and popped it in the ashtray that she had in her drawer, and she shut the drawer. And I was like, this is peculiar. And I interviewed for a secretarial role, an admin role, and I got the job. And then I spent the next 7 years with that company. So I did admin, I did IT, I did contingency recruitment. So I hired Prudential sales people. They were all old men who I interviewed on the M25, one of the services on the M25. Must have interviewed 100 of these people, and they were all the same. They were exactly the same, because the Pru hired a certain type of person.
The man from the Pru. I mean, that was even their strapline, wasn't it?
Exactly.
That doesn't work today.
It wasn't tricky to hire those people. And then I also did proper search. So they had a pure headhunt. So, I know CFO of Sky type proper search. And I did assessment centres. So they trained me up to be an assessor, and I built assessment centres for people like the RAC. So 7 years of that. When I left, I was a director. It was still a small business. And then I kind of kept slipping back in to do a few bits. But yeah, 7 years properly in a recruitment agency, doing every single role. And I loved it.
I must admit, the interviewing at the service stations on the M25, you're not selling it at all to anyone that's thinking of joining it, but not quite the same now, is it?
I've interviewed in some nice places as well, but there was a lot of having to go to where the candidates were. So, we weren't doing any online interviewing at all at that point. There was no phone interviewing. I mean, you'd take a call and you do some screening on the phone, but all the interviewing was face-to-face. And a lot of it was in hotel receptions. I mean, you must have done years of that, sitting in a Hilton with a cup of coffee, interviewing and hoping they weren't going to overlap as one person leaves and the next arrives.
I wasn't too bad, actually. I worked for Blue Arrow, and because there was 75 locations in the UK, we had an area. So when I was Hemel Hempstead, we only had 5 mile radius.
Oh, okay.
So they came to you. Kent, I had 50, and I do remember one Christmas, the whole of December, in 10 job centres interviewing for 1,000 security guards. We had a month to find them. So yeah, not so salubrious in those times. Let's say hello to some people. Alan Clark saying, saving the best to last. I see. That's lovely. Stephen wanting to hear some nuggets I've never heard before. So maybe he's had those already, because I didn't know that background. And that he's always lurking. I'm not sure that that goes so well. Joe Phillips and Claire Bush say good morning. They're over on LinkedIn Live and are already laughing about the cigarette. And I can remember those times walking into Welwyn Garden City branch, and you used to go up the stairs, and at the top of the stairs there would be a haze over the top of them. You could see with all this smoke at the back of the room. It just seems ridiculous now, doesn't it? But that's how long we've been in recruitment.
It is.
It's been from there. So let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly then. What would you say is the good about your recruitment life?
So there's lots of things I think is amazing about recruitment, and I kind of try to distill it into two. So one of them is the amazing knowledge you get, the people you meet, the networking you can do. So because I did so much recruitment, there's loads of jobs I know about. So, you know, when you meet someone at a dinner party, you will be exactly the same, Angela. And they're saying to somebody else, well, it's really complicated explaining what I do. And you know, you're going to know what they do, because when they tell you they're a NAM or a BDM or whatever they say to you, or, you know, I was a field sales rep for Walkers, you know what that job is. Yeah. So I like the fact that you have a really good understanding of lots of industry spaces as a recruiter. And my advice is going to touch on having a niche, but nevertheless, you still get a real breadth of understanding about businesses, and you get to meet tons of people. You mentioned the networking. So there's inter-industry networking within the recruitment space, but also within the niche that you operate in. Mm-hmm. So that's the good. But the other good is the matching. The thing that you do is magic. To think about the hiring manager, the HR manager, the needs, your own database, and the job seekers, to pull all that together and to match people, I think is just amazing. And it is a real skill and an art, and it takes training and everything else. But that's the real good, is making that match and making it well.
That's the creative side of recruitment, isn't it? When you get that bit. And I think that's why AI will struggle to get that element. It can do all the practical stuff, but it isn't. It's more of an art form in that side. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because we haven't had that this week. And the matching side, and especially when you took a job on, you already knew you had a candidate. As they're saying things, you're like, yes, you're ticking all those boxes. Yes, they've got that. And you got really excited about the position before you'd even started, because you knew that you had good people that would be relevant. But yeah, getting that culture match right as well. You've got to get them with the line manager and who they're going to be working with, as well as the HR possibly who does the second interview. There's so many people they've actually got to fit with. It's not just about doing the job, it's getting the job. And that's where you come in.
The other thing is that all of those people have like this kind of hidden, there's like the conscious understanding of what they need and what they want, and there's the unconscious. So it's a little bit like, you know, when you watch Location and they say, I want a house which looks like this. Yeah. And then you see they buy a totally different house. And recruitment can be a bit like that. So you're a bit of a Kirsty Althorpe trying to kind of work out what I think you really need is this. And that's the kind of consultancy bit, which I really enjoyed, was do you know what? I wonder whether we ought to go a bit more down this route. And to the person you're speaking to, the job seeker, who's saying, no, I really want this and this and this. And you can say, well, I can see the direction your skills are going. You could utilise them more. And that's the other side of it, is pulling out the stuff they don't even know about.
Well, that's the key, isn't it? The candidate, they don't know what they don't know. So they might have this want in their head, but it's not necessarily what they need. So there's wants and needs, and really delving into those. So maybe that's the workout for today, is when you're interviewing a candidate, are you really delving into the wants and needs and establishing and putting your own knowledge into it to then help them to decide? It's not just about them. You're a consultant. You are meant to consult, and therefore that's the key element. I love that. Love the good. Okay, let's deal with the bad then. What's the bad?
I think it's the way that recruitment works is the bad, which is that as a recruitment consultant, you are having to earn money based on making placements, and that kind of goes against everything which is about getting the right match. At the end of the day, you have to place somebody. You have to place somebody because you need the fee, but you have to place somebody or else you won't get that business again. So that's a real challenge, because sometimes it's not achievable for whatever reason. And I have seen, everyone knows this, so many cases where you have picked the best candidate you have, not the best candidate there is. And I think that is the bad of recruitment, is that you are targeted with hitting fee targets. And I think that structure, we talk about this all the time. You know, maybe we should change the way in which we charge fees. Contingency recruitment sucks. But nothing's changed in 30 years, Angela. Really, nothing hasn't. Some people were doing different types of recruitment fee structures back then, and they still are now. So this RPO model, or this kind of retained, and then we'll work with you as an in-house resource, that still existed back then. It still exists now. But the majority of us working in recruitment are working on a fee basis based on making that placement. And that is the bad. There's lots of other bad, but if I had to pick one, that's the one I'm choosing to go with.
Yeah, I mean, you're sort of setting yourself up to fail right from the start, aren't you? And especially if you're not working exclusive, you're hedging your bets. Hung Lee on Wednesday it was, I said, talked about recruitment being a bit like gambling, and contingency, total gamble at that point, isn't it? You are hedging your bets and you're betting on yourself. So if you are really good, that's going to work out for you. But if you're not and you're just starting out and working, that's going to be really tough from there. Okay, so let's see if we can work on that. I think we have moved on that the last few years. We did a lot more around retained. John Brooks did a lot of sessions for us around knowing your value and getting, I think Alan Clark said about project fees up front as well on those retainers. We'll get some of these links in here for all of these sessions that we've done in the past. And actually, yeah, Alan's got a good point there. How many times does the client hire your bronze medalist? It's not always your best person that they go for. Nothing has changed in 30 years. How very dare you? I'm still training that stuff and getting away with it.
And that says it all, because Alan's right. Alan's stuff is absolutely gold dust. Everything that's in the gym is amazing, but we are still having to train the same stuff, because it's not that the individual doesn't care, it's the way recruitment agencies are structured. So how much can you do as an individual recruitment consultant when you work in an agency which has that structure, which has that ethos? Yeah. I mean, we are innovative. We always embrace new things. But maybe it's that core is never meant to change, because that is all about the relationship building. That is about understanding people, whether that's your clients or your candidates. And that's always going to be there. So maybe we shouldn't try and go against that and recreate it and change the wheel. That's not right, is it? What am I trying to say? Reinvent the wheel. Well, you work with what you've got, don't you? And that's kind of going back to the good, which is that you have this ability to work harder to match people right. Because one of the other bads is the difficulty in taking a decent spec. And I'm sure you talk about this all the time in the gym. But, you've got the challenge of a hiring manager who isn't giving all the information to you, who's very rushed, who thinks it's okay to kind of send out this crappy spec to 7 agencies. So that's the bad as well. And you can do something with that, but it's still a challenge.
Yeah. But that's what makes it great as well. We love a challenge. It would be boring if it wasn't challenging. So we'll take it from there. Okay, the ugly then, get into the dark side. I'm looking at your background. One, I think Peacock, which is fabulous, but I also think Mystic Meg. and getting this psychic energy coming through. So what about the ugly, the dark side, the black side?
Okay, I've got a few. But the one which relates to this is I think that the fact that sometimes we lose sight of the fact that it's an individual and their associated family that's affected by making poor choices. So we often talk about the cost of a poor hire. I can't remember what the figures are, but they've always been out there. And
25 to 30 grand at the moment is what they're suggesting. Okay,
so you say this to the person who you're kind of do your pitch to. So you say, this is the cost of the bad hire. That's why it's so important that you use me. We have all these processes. We're amazing. We're going to make sure you don't make that mistake. But the cost of a bad hire is actually screwing up someone's life. And I have absolutely seen it. And I think that I saw one of your guests earlier in the week talking about that. It was shoehorning someone in to get that placement, which is why it ties back to the bad. And the ugly is this. I know it happens that you say to somebody, this is going to be the perfect job for you, but you have all this other information that you're not sharing with them. So the reason why you're interviewing this person is because the last 2 people who had this job had to leave. Did you ask why they had to leave? Do you know that? Are you putting this person in knowing they've got a high chance of failure?
Yeah.
So I have seen that many times where we have to make the fee, which is the bad, and the ugly is that sometimes the right person doesn't get the job, or the right person for a different job gets the wrong job. So you persuade someone not to take that other job that they were going to take because you don't get a fee for it, and you persuade them to take the job that you have because you get the fee for it. And somewhere in your brain, you're saying, yeah, it's going to be great. They're going to really love it. You know, they're going to get to travel. But if they were your best mate, would you be saying to them, take that job? And I've always said that to myself. If that person was my best mate, would I be saying this is the right move for you? What other questions would I be telling them to ask?
Yeah, I love that. Bringing it back to you and knowing the impact that could possibly have on that person, so that you are just double checking. Yeah, integrity was one of the key things that came up around the ugly in the business, and unfortunately there are people without integrity, and this is where it goes wrong, and that's why we get a bad reputation. It only needs a few, doesn't it, to make that difference. Pippa's saying that's why she prefers to work in a niche market, that she's obviously working better with those clients, a lot closer to them. Alan again saying, I think Louise's background is not a background at all, it's her aura. Yes, radiates and lights up the room. Either that or her head is exploding.
It's not my head. It's not my head.
It does fit. But yeah, Stephen agreeing. Best mate is a great rule of thumb. So let's add that then to our interviewing skills. Yeah, when you're thinking of putting a candidate forward, or maybe you're just pushing them that little bit more to take the interview or to take the job. If they were your best mate, would you still be doing that? Because I think that could be an issue. Right, last one then. New people joining. What would you have liked to have known, or someone told you before you started?
Well, I definitely think it's an amazing career. So the first thing I would say is don't hesitate, jump in, do it. You don't have to be an amazing salesperson. You don't have to be an amazing marketing person. You have to be curious. You have to have ethics. Well, you don't have to have ethics. I'd like to have ethics. Ideally, you'll have ethics, and you have to work really hard. Now, when I first joined recruitment, there was the 8 to 8 shift, and that was all we did. We came in at 8 in the morning, we left at 8 at night. At 7 o'clock, someone went and got the beers from the off licence over the road. So the last hour did involve beers. Not sure how many people drove home. I walked, so I was fine. It was really hard work. It's still really hard work. I don't think that's gone at all. So the things I think are, and I think that I've seen this, Pippa, pick a niche. So definitely think right from the start, what is my thing going to be? Sector-wise, role-wise, geographic-wise, it's much easier if you've got a niche. And I do think Debbie might have said this yesterday, which is ideally don't just set up on your own. Go and work for a decent agency to start with. So I probably in early 2020 was getting a call every single week, and for the couple of years before that, from people saying, I've been working in pharmaceuticals, I'm going to set up a recruitment agency, what should I do? I've been selling crisps for walkers. You know, every single week someone would say to me, I know my sector, I'm going to set up a recruitment agency. And to not one of those single people did I say, yeah, go for it. To all of them I said, go and find a recruitment business who operates in the space you want to operate, work with them for a couple of years. And that is still my advice. And I don't know whether are you aligned with that, Angela?
Oh. Maybe I'm allergic to it. I'm not sure. I am. I get these calls all the time, and my man says, "Okay, what do you know about the recruitment process?" And they're like, "Oh, there's a process." They just think it's easy, and each element is easy. But I mean, we used to train, Alan and I, the A to Z at London Associates of Recruitment. So that's 26 steps of the recruitment process, and there used to be the 30 steps of making a placement. Yeah, this is a lot to it. So if you haven't honed those to start with, you're setting yourself up to fail if you're going to try and do it on your own. We used to get people that would admit on their exit interviews, I'm glad to say I had 0% turnover on my staff, but Blue Arrow was a training ground for those smaller recruiters. They would come to us, they'd have 6 months of training. Within that time, they'd probably have 4 different courses all about the recruitment and sales and candidates. And then they would go and get a job elsewhere. So that was why we had a high turnover. People used to use our training to then go and work elsewhere. So you're right. go and work for a reputable one. You never know. You might actually find out that you don't need to set up your own agency. Each consultant, we told them, this is your business. That desk is your business. You write the plan. You decide how you're going to work on that. You set your objectives, what you want to achieve, and we're here to support. So you might find it much easier to do it that way. And you still feel like you're running a mini business.
Yeah, and absolutely, that's it. Sorry, yeah. My suggestion is don't go in, learn everything and sod straight off. My suggestion is go work for a business, see how it suits you, because actually a year in a recruitment agency can change you enormously in terms of knowing the direction you want to take and the opportunities that are out there. Two other things I've got is keep an eye on the figures, the KPIs. Never, I mean, you know, it's salesy shit, everyone knows it, but don't lose track of what you're trying to achieve, and you do need to measure that in some way. Yeah. I had a whiteboard with the fees racking up in different colours, showing what percentage they were. There was always someone who would put things at 95% and you knew they'd never happen. So decent KPI measurements, really important. Yeah. And the other thing I had was play the long game with clients and candidates. And that comes back to the ugly, which is it's not about shoehorning the wrong person into the wrong job. It's about thinking long term for those businesses and those job seekers. That's really difficult to do in some agencies, because some agencies you are really heavily targeted on hitting that fee. But the best recruiter I've ever known in my life, Emma McDonald, she's amazing, and she was always so focused on, I'm going to want to come back to this person in 3 years to make the next placement for them. And so it made her make the right choices.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. I can see the messages still coming in. Pippa was great training at Montrose, which then turned into Hayes. Experience as a recruiter is perfect for seeing all types of jobs and deciding what you want to do as a career. You're right, Stephen. It gives you that window into everything. And some people then do go off and end up working with their clients. I hope if that's you that you get a placement fee for it at least. Make sure if someone's leaving you for one of your clients, you get that placement fee. Now, I was hoping today that we would go over the 1,000 people signed up for the daily workout. I'm now wondering the size of that button. Does it only go up to 999, Louise? Is this a question we need to find out today?
No, it does go over 1,000. So anybody who's watching on LinkedIn Live needs to now find this link and click on it. So somebody needs to do that so that you can get the 1,000. Is the link in the comments over on the live?
It should be, Charlotte. Make sure it's just popped in again so people can do that. Come on, let's see if we can get. I meant to do this at the beginning because we would have probably done it during the show. But yeah.
Yes, but you haven't given me the chance to achieve this, have you? Because you didn't say it at the start. That is very disappointing.
I know. So we've got your link in there as well in the chat, so please do. So anyone that's watching live, share this link. Come on, we want to be able to take a screenshot of it today for Louise to say that we've hit the 1,000. But yeah, I must admit I was wondering does he actually stop there, and I'm trying to achieve something that wasn't going to happen. Yes. It's gone over the 1,000.
Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, wonderful. Well, there you go. So Louise, UK recruiter, recruitment agency, expo speaker, organizer, crowdcast support person for people here in the UK. What else am I missing?
Well, job boards. So that's the other thing. That's my latest thing is job boards. I've always loved job boards because I was around at the inception of them. I mean, I didn't invent them myself, but I was there before they were created. So I've always loved that job board space. And now I run a conference for job boards and do a load of stuff with job boards as well. So yeah, I am genuinely spinning all my plates and loving it.
Brilliant. Well, that's how I've always known you. You're involved with everyone. You're what I would call a hub in recruitment. So if you're not connected with Louise, where have you been? She is the best person in recruitment to be connected to. So you need to know. So that's our week. That's our My Life in Recruitment. I have loved it, I must admit. We've got some great tips. We're going to create a video from everyone's tips. That will go out next week on YouTube and all the channels. So we'll pull those together. But that would be great for people joining the industry to see these icons sharing their knowledge. So I am going to be doing it every quarter, if you would like to nominate someone, because obviously we reach out to people we know to start with, but it would be lovely to get some nominations as to who you think would be great to interview for My Life in Recruitment, that's got some stories to tell. Wonderful. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you. 1,000. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.